Mars is finally in Leo, and we are seeing the beginning of Taurus season alongside Mercury making its way into Aries, and we still got that conjunction between Venus-Saturn-North Node asking us to mature and essentially grow up in what it is we say that we love and are willing to fight for. This is the astrological forecast for the week of April 16th to the 22nd, so let's get into it, y'all. So welcome to Yappin with the Stars, a show where I talk about life and spirit with the help from the planets, stars, and zodiacs. I am your host and guide, Dr. Nicole Rawls, anthropologist, astrologer, and artist, and this is Anthropology and Astrology My Way. Now, weekly shows drop on Wednesday, and this is when we check in to the chaos that we call society and see what the cosmos can help us make sense of, all right? This week is an interesting one, okay? So real quick, what we're going to do is going to go through a quick weekly forecast, do a little bit of astrology 101, and then get into analyzing what the hell any of this and all of this means for us right now in this moment, all right? And if you've been following me for a while, you also know that I am a Western tropical whole signs astrologer, and this is the first time you are meeting me. It's good to know that. So when I'm talking about the stars, planets, and zodiacs and the different aspects and how I am engaging with it, remember that I am reading this through a Western tropical whole signs perspective, okay? And my last episode, I went into more detail as to why I use this kind of system and the way I'm analyzing it. But I also am very clear that as I kind of grow older and as society shifts and changes, I most likely will also be shifting and changing how I engage with astrology as well and read the chart. So also know that just because you start off reading the chart in a certain way, say you use whole signs or Placidus, or you start with tropical or sidereal, doesn't mean you have to stay in those systems, y'all. Astrology has many different ways in which we can organize the chart, in which we can read the chart. And even if we all use the same system, the both housing and overall perspective, how you analyze that chart will still be individual. So just also remember that too. When you are looking at an astrology chart, it can be overwhelming and intimidating, but as you get to understand and read it, the complexities start to emerge the more you give yourself permission to be curious with the chart and understand that there are multiple ways to not only construct it, but read it. And in doing so, it gives you more openness to listen and receive the messages that the planets and the stars and the zodiac are trying to relate to us. And that's something I wanted to make sure I highlighted here. So again, as I read the chart through a Western tropical whole signs, I'm not somebody that thinks that that is the best or only way to read the chart. It is one way to read it. It is the way I read it, and I read it that way because I engage with the kind of colonial project and pushing back against the colonial project through the process of dreaming through strategy. And so because of that, I engage with the colonial understanding of said planets, stars, and zodiacs, all right? So just a little caveat there. Now, let's get into some more about astrology, though, before we even get into the forecast while we're here. So when you're looking at a chart, y'all, last week I talked about, what kind of full moon was, since we were talking about the full moon in Libra, but then also degrees, because the degrees matter. So what are the degrees? When you're looking at an astrology chart, y'all, go ahead and pull one up. It can be yours or just any, what currently is going on in the sky. What you're going to notice is in that kind of circle, you're going to see numbers. The first number is the degree. That degree is the planet or whatever object is being shown in the chart was at the time of your birth, if you're looking at a natal chart, okay? Now, those degrees matter because they tell us how the planets and other objects, asteroids and the like, are having a conversation with one another. This is what we call aspects. So aspects are going to be those blue and red lines that you see in your astrology chart. And again, I call an aspect a conversation. And is that conversation one that is a bit tense, or is it one that can be a bit more harmonious? And we see that, and that's why they are red lines or blue lines. So the red lines are going to be more tense conversations, more tense interactions between the objects in play. And so these kind of red lines tend to be either conjunctions, oppositions, or squares. Now, the blue lines are going to be kind of quote unquote more harmonious conversations. These are going to be trines and sextiles. Now, that's a really basic understanding of it. One, depending upon what is in conversation, that may shift. But overall, when you're looking at a chart, the degrees give us an understanding of where exactly those those planets or objects were in the sky at birth or in the moment that we are constructing a chart if we're running a transit. Okay. And then those degrees then let us know if current planets that are happening right now in the sky, so what we call transits, the current astrological kind of makeup, if what's going on currently will directly impact you. Okay. And so that's why those numbers matter, those degrees matter. So not every transit will hit you individually. And this is really important to understand. Astrology is both a way to understand the self, but also the collective, because the astrology chart is not just you, right? The first house is you, but we all got 12 houses. And once you get past house one, we start to see not only the construction of how we are constituted as a human, right? The 12th house, you are in the womb. The first house with the ascendant line is when you meet your body. And then that is when you realize you have a body. And then as you go through houses 2, 3, 4, all the way around, right, then we meet ourselves in different ways as we have to interact with different actors in this thing that we call life. Okay. So because of that, remember that just because it's a full moon and it's like, the full moon, it's hitting all the thing. But if you don't have any placements in that sign or house, or it's not making any major aspects to other aspects in your chart, you may not personally feel it, but you may observe what is going on in that transit around you in society. All right. Let me know if that makes sense, y'all. Go ahead and comment below in whatever platform you're watching this on or listening to this, if that is making sense. And go ahead and pull up your own chart. Okay. Go up and pull up your own chart and just see if you can kind of get a deeper understanding of it now, just having a comprehension of what those lines are saying to you if this is something that is new for you. And if you like what you're hearing and you want to make sure that you don't miss out on new episodes of Yappin with the Stars, shopping every Wednesday, make sure to hit that like, share, and subscribe buttons. If you are watching on YouTube, and if you are listening on Spotify or Apple, the same thing. Make sure you like and share and also comment. I do read y'all's comments, and so please let me know what comes up for you, how this resonates, and for future topics that you'd be interested in hearing about, okay? And the more that folks can engage with my work, the faster I can move toward monetization, because I am trying to monetize my YouTube channel and I need more watch hours to be very transparent. So please go ahead and share with folks who would be interested. Now back to the show. Let's get into the forecast, because as I'm talking about the forecast, y'all, remember, depending upon your personal placements, right, and how those placements are interacting with the transits currently, you may or may not feel this personally, but there will be ways we are going to see this play out collectively. And we're going to get into that as we talk about this, especially y'all, especially if you are on social media, TikTok, and you seeing all those kind of quote unquote trade secrets of luxury items and goods being exposed through various Chinese vendors talking about where things are actually made. This is classic. This is classic to me. Example of this conjunction that we're seeing in Pisces of Saturn, Venus in the North Node alongside Neptune in Aries and Pluto in Aquarius. All right. So that's one example that we're going to get further into. Okay. So let's finally get into it. Now, the week of forecast, we got the 16th to the 22nd. All right. And so what we're going to be seeing on the 16th is a couple of things. One, Mercury is going into Aries. All right. So Mercury, like I said earlier, was in Pisces, made its way into Aries, retrograded back into Pisces, right? And now it's coming back into Aries. So there is a way that Mercury, again, being the planet of the crossroads, being the planet of communication, being the planet that is also non-binary, right? Mercury occupies both masculine and feminine energy. It's not given one or the other. So even so, whether you like it or not, the planets and cosmos have been talking about non-binary for a very long time, okay? This is not something that is new. It is something that's heavily embedded in nature itself, okay? And so because of this, what we're going to be seeing is there has been a reflection and review and a washing of the ways that we communicate, take in information, and also have to kind of take responsibility for the decisions that we have to make now that we have reviewed and have that information, okay? This is why Mercury retrogrades so much. And again, retrogrades remind us that life is not some linear and progressive fashion. I think I talked about this in the first episode I did at the very beginning of April. Time is circular because it's about patterns, until we can break those loops and create new kind of quote unquote timelines. And when I say that, it really just new roads, new possibilities opening up. Okay, so Mercury asked us to review and went through back and forth Pisces and Aries, endings and beginnings, feet and head, right? Are you grounded in your feet? Can you feel your feet so that your body is communicating with your mind, with the head? Okay, it's another way to think about this. This is Mercury, and it's fast moving, and it's in Aries, it's in fire. Now, what's interesting here is that Mercury will then be going conjunct to Neptune and passing it again, because again, it went through this kind of retrograde back and forth, and Neptune has made its way ingress, as we say, into Aries, and will be here for a few months until I think, September, that it'll move back into Pisces one last time before it makes its way into Aries for the next 14 years or so. Anytime a planet is kind of conjunct and passes through Neptune, it's considered to have been cleansed by Neptune, right? Because Neptune's the deep water. Think of it as like a head wash. Think like a literal washing of the head. And so when we see Neptune being conjunct with Mercury right now, and then Mercury is going to make its way, because it's fast moving through Neptune, think about it as being washed, but in fire. And this is really important, elements, right? We are in an age in which we are entering into overall fire and air with the outer planets, and we are getting previews of what this is going to look like, right? So with Mercury being washed through Neptune, what in the reflection that has happened, that we have all experienced, and that we have all had to kind of review of where we get our communication from, who we are believing and why, right? Where we place our authority up to, whose authority are we looking to and listening to when we are trying to get information about what is going on, and what figureheads are we going to platform. Neptune in Aries is going to bring, and it's at 0 degrees, we are getting a preview for the next few months. And this is really important, a preview of what is to come. There is going to be a vying of power from people who want to have their perspective leading, okay? Their ideology leading. This is the rise of the charismatic leader. Okay, Neptune and Aries. And not all leaders care about peace. Not all leaders care about, everything being quote unquote kumbayas. We're going to see a number of different types of leaders emerging. And some are just going to be agents of pure goddamn chaos. And we have seen an agent of chaos right now in the United States leading this nation, because that man is nothing but the agent of chaos, and he is doing his job well. So what we are seeing now then is, what is our responsibility individually and collectively for taking back the ways that we give up, again, authority to others, and having them tell us what truly is and is not, quote unquote, real or not. Because reality is breaking and everything is opening up. The quote unquote kind of trade secrets, these stories that we've been told, the kind of origin stories that we've been fed, are being revealed. And last week I talked about this, and this is a continuation of this conversation. And this is because we still have Saturn and Venus in this conjunction, and they're going to be together to the end of the month. So this is a kind of 2 to 3 week period of Saturn really saying, listen, y'all, everybody got to grow up and get clear about what we understand when it comes to love and beauty and all the like, because beauty is another form of control by power, right? It always has been. But now the kind of facade is being opened up again. Neptune is in Aries. So the things that were nebulous, the kind of glamour magic, because Neptune is a home in Pisces, it knows how to use that water to its advantage. It's drying out. It's a little exposed, right? It is showing the what is beneath the surface, what is underneath the curtain. And so do we believe, right? But who do we believe? You got to find your feet. So Saturn is reminding us with Neptune and Venus, this is fated, right? But it's fated in you have to be clear about what it is you love, what you understand as your origin, what you understand as your authority. Because again, Saturn rules authority. Venus rules love, but Venus also is about the kind of materiality of our existence and culture. It reminds us what it means to be human. So you have to take your authority back in your humanity. And so let's talk about what's going on now with all the kind of exposing of Venetian type industries, especially when it comes to fashion and beauty that we are seeing online with a lot of these TikToks from, again, Chinese vendors talking about, a lot of these luxury goods are made in China and they just slap their logo on. And this is what has that kind of markup because the industry is relying upon a couple of things. One, straight up Orientalism, this idea that anything created outside of the Western kind of ecosystem is somehow subpar in quality. And that subpar in quality then means that the price being cheaper reflects that it is a cheap quality product, right? A lot of that is heavily tied to very early colonial kind of constructs of East versus West. This is classic Edward Said Orientalism. But again, when we're talking about the West and power, it's been set up in this very binary kind of ideology whose origin story is based upon the West rising as the bastions of democracy and freedom, right? And choice. Choice. So you have all of these things at your hand, but in reality, that choice was a facade. That origin story is a facade. That construction of what is considered luxury versus what is considered secondhand or inferior was nothing more than a story that we all bought into, and now it is disintegrating, right? And it's not necessarily a story that was never told before. Many folks have talked about this throughout the years, about the kind of ways that luxury items are a construct, are a story that we are told that gets us to buy into some kind of exclusiveness, right? Some kind of specialness. In capitalism, they need us to feel special based upon how much we make and how much we can spend, because again, it's all about commodity. And the first commodity is the body. So when we're thinking about endings and beginnings, does this actually work for us as a society, right? Does the idea that paying and this idea of the kind of commodifying of everything, has it gotten us more life? Has it gotten us the promises that we were promised over space and time generationally of these kind of American dreams of bootstrapping it up? Is that a reality? Right? See, Neptune is drying out once again. And so what's drying out are all those nebulous stories that many bought into because of the hope and wish that it could be you one day, right? So were those your hopes and dreams, or was that structures? So as the structure gets revealed, there is a growing up that we have to do about what we actually want, what we need, and what we desire. But if you are not in your body, if you are not feeling your feet, as I always say, then how will you know how to answer those questions for you and not just continuously reproduce what the structures of society need us to do so that we're always giving our authority up to it? Okay. And so this kind of energy that we're going into, it's building a story, right? I'm doing these weekly forecasts, but it's really a continuous story that is asking us to take our authority back if we dare. But in order for us to take our authority back, again, Pluto and Aquarius is saying, baby, something's got to die. something has to die to make the space. And so now we're going into, as Mars is making its way into Leo, after it's been in Cancer for a while, we're going to get this on the 18th, right? What we are starting to see and feel is an opposition of Mars to Pluto. And it's really starting with Mars at its late degree, 29 degrees in Cancer. It's starting to form a loose opposition to Pluto in Aquarius at 3 degrees. Now, again, these degrees matter, right? Because how do you even know what is an opposition? What is a square, right? Well, it's called an orb. So some astrologers have bigger orbs, some have smaller orbs, but basically in a certain amount of degrees, plus or minus from its exactness, right, is when you start to see aspects forming. And so I like to do about 3-4 degrees on each side is when you're going to start to see various aspects. And then when Mars will be at 3 degrees Leo, it will be in direct opposition to Pluto and Aquarius. And that actually happens on the 26th next week at the same time as that new moon in Taurus. We'll talk about that next week for the show, okay? But so we're starting this opposition. And when Mars and Pluto are opposed to each other or square, right, that's some tension, y'all. That can be war, that can be fighting, that can be a battle of wills. Okay. Now, Pluto is the planet of will, of power. It transforms. Again, all the outer planets go through a transformation cycle. They require us to transform collectively, just in different ways. Pluto likes to do the death and life transformation through literal death and life, right? Something has to die in order to be reborn. And as I said last week, this is about the collective. What about our collectives need to be reconstituted so that we do have the capability to push back against structures that are asking more of us and giving nothing back in return except more violence, right? So Pluto and Aquarius squaring off Mars and Leo being not just the child, but also the ego, and in Mars, if you are not grounded, right, in your own body, if you are not clear, you can be very reactionary, and it can be reactionary solo. So you can think about this as collectives pushing back against authoritarian power structures, right? And we're in this opposition at the same time that we are also having Uranus in Taurus, having this sextile to that conjunction in Pisces of Saturn, Venus, and the North Node. This is a shakeup, right? Anytime we are thinking that the floor is solid, Uranus is reminding us in the late stages that it is in Taurus, is that all of this shit is not solid. Everything is shaky right now, right? Because Taurus is the most fixed sign of the fixed signs, as I said last week. Also, it is Earth, right? It is solid. It's what stabilizes. But if what is stabilizing us is not actually stabilizing, right? Because again, it's sextiling that conjunction in Saturn, in Pisces with Saturn, Venus, and the North Node. What we are seeing is a shakeup requiring us to grow up, right, and mature in what it is that we truly want as a society collectively in order to have that stability. Okay. So stability, in order to have stability, there needs to be change, because what has been stable is no longer giving us what it needs. So therefore, in order for a new stability to come, that one must go through its own process of, again, transformation. And Uranus transforms quickly. It is exact. It comes down. It's air, right? And Pluto is also an air. So we have air activated. Uranus is air, but it's in Taurus. So when Uranus goes into Gemini, it will be really also in air. But right now we have Pluto in Aquarius. We've got Neptune in Aries. So we got fire and air activated, and the Earth is being shaken up, right? Earth is being shaken up through water. And so all the elements are here, right? There is a kind of activation occurring, reminding us that in order for change to occur, we have to get elemental, right? We got to get down to the basics, endings and beginnings, feet and head, okay? So as we go into Taurus season, this is going to be, I think, really important for us to remind ourselves is that there is no going back. Okay, the sun's been in Aries, things have been igniting. Now, what needs to kind of not only be shaken up, but what also needs to be reevaluated in terms of what we define as safety and security? And I think that's a really important question that the new moon will invite us to examine next week. And again, I'll talk about that more next week. But as a prep for that, ask yourself, how do you define safety and security? How do you define it? How has society defined it for you? And then where are there similarities and differences? Okay, that's just the beginning to be able to excavate and really get into what it is do you need, want, and desire. Again, this goes back to that Piscean conjunction, Saturn, Venus, North Node. I'm going to keep talking about that because I really do think it's important. The kind of ability to give yourself permission to dream differently about what that shit means. Okay, we have to do that. And I say this as a Taurus moon, right? That's conjunct my Chiron on my descendant in the seventh house. Right? There's a way that I crave stability. I crave stability and security, right? But the last few years for me have been nothing but upending of what I thought safety and security was. Right. And it's taught me a lot. Currently, right now, I'm in a whole new place. If you've watched my videos the last 2 weeks, you've noticed that the background's changed. I've moved. I'm still in the process of unpacking and stuff. But everything I thought was safe and secure, my whole life completely got upended. From the divorce to leaving my career to moving, trying to navigate how I make income and money, even what it means to have a kind of healthy relationship to money. All of that's been upended for me. Everything I thought was safety and security was nothing more than stagnation and reproduction. So it had to change, it had to shift. And I'm in the middle of my Uranus opposition right now. So my sense of self and even who I'm in one-on-one relationships with has heavily undergone a massive transformation. I mean, shit, I came out as gay to myself 3 years ago, right? So this things are really literal. But as we are entering into the kind of end of this week, before we go into this new moon, this time I really want folks to get in touch, right, with not only what you need, but also what care is for you. We talked about this last time, but this is really important right now because Mars is leaving Cancer going into Leo. And it was there in Cancer for a long time for a reason. Mars needed us to get clear about what it is we truly need for our life, for living. Right? As a Mars in Cancer, again, I talked about this before. I'm a Scorpio rising with Mars in Cancer natally, and my ascendant trines my Mars, but my Mars is naturally conjunct my Pluto in Libra. And most of my life, I have had this like tense relationship with my emotions. I always thought I was too emotional, feel very deeply, and I don't know how not to have a reaction. It doesn't mean that I'm going to pop off, but I don't know how not to have a reaction, especially when I'm seeing something that is not just. Because I actually do know what it feels like to have injustice on my body, to be physically and, quite frankly, sexually and emotionally abused. And even if I don't like you, doesn't mean that I want you dead. Even if I can't stand you, doesn't mean that I want to see you suffer, because I understand what that feels like and there's no goddamn point to it. So I refuse to allow that to be some kind of standard or norm that people say is just what it is because we're human. Fuck that. It is not. It is what happens when we become dehumanized. Right. And so what I've learned over the years with Mars in Cancer is that my emotions are powerful. They are my superpower if you want to kind of go there with it. And It's because it reminds me of my humanity. It reminds me that we are so much more than the shit we have been fed through this life. Told that we are only as good as what we can produce and what we can do for other people. Told that we are all, that only way that we can be mothering or mothered is if we give up everything, our essence of who we are for everybody else. And then when we're dead, we get eulogized as being of good service to everybody else, but no one knows who the hell we actually are because we don't even know who we are outside of being of service to somebody else. Nah, what I have learned is that Mars in Cancer is powerful because it tells you to take that shit back. It tells you your emotions are there because your body is alive and it is telling you that does not make sense. Or it's telling you go that way because that finally makes sense. The joy is so high, just as much as the anger can be, right? So Mars in Cancer was reminding us, y'all, that our emotions make us human. So can we work with them? Do we listen to them? Do we understand that if we do not work with them, they will work us and they will overtake? Your mind might be powerful, but baby, your body is more, because without a body, you have no mind because your spirit has no vessel to inhabit. So what did we learn this last retrograde, y'all? Individually and collectively. Like I said last week, I have hope we have learned that if we do not have care for one another, we ain't got shit. I hope we have learned that no matter how individualistic you want to be, no matter how much you want to buy into an ideology that tells you that you must always be pushing and moving in success, that means nothing. That means nothing if you have no food in your house, if you have no home to begin with. And even if you have all of that, if you have no one to share it with, then how fulfilling is your life? Nurturing and care are foundational and fundamental to what it means to be human. But yet that is the first thing that is demonized, and we are told that to have empathy is somehow antagonistic to human advancement. Who the hell ever said that being empathetic will be detrimental to somebody's health? Who does that benefit and why? Right? So Mars in Cancer was reminding us that, baby, you better fight for your goddamn family. You better fight for your body. You better fight for your nurturing. You better fight for your care. Because if not, they will take and take and take. So now that we have had that review and that reflection, and we are seeing the crumbling of society around us, we are seeing how they are literally taking away the very few things societally that we had to provide some basics of care. All we have is each other then. All we have are our relationships. The human capital that has been expounded from us in order to make a buck for somebody else now must be taken back. Maturing, y'all, maturing in them deep waters, right? Must be taken back and reworked, right? So that we are figuring out what we are putting and where we are putting our passions into. Because Mars is the planet that rules not just war, y'all. It rules passion, drive, creativity, severing, inflammation, strategy. I always talk about Mars as a strategist. So when I'm looking at a chart for somebody and I'm working with them in a strategic way, because I use astrology as a means of strategy, then I'm looking at their Mars. I'm looking at their Venus and their Mars because I want to see how they work with their anger, how they work with their passion, how they work with their drive. And depending upon the element that your Mars sign is in, will determine how your energy and how your passion and creativity express itself. Okay. So that's why I say that the detriment and exaltations really have to be re-examined and reassessed in the present day, because the identities of your body and how your body is read will determine just how much you can express that so-called exaltation or detriment of those planets. All right. So this is a much more, so for me, this allows us a bit more permission to play with these placements more, to get more out of them, because society has definitely created these kind of constructs that have confined us in them. So break the boxes, y'all. And I really do believe that Mars is asking us to break these boxes, because as it goes into Leo, even as it's going to be in opposition to Pluto, personally, though, it is giving us the kind of drive to take those dreams, to take the things that we have learned, that we have understood that we need for nurturing, and put that shit into action. Right? We're only going to save ourselves. So who is the self you are saving? And do you see yourself as enough, right, to save? So this to me really is what we're going to be going into this week, okay? It's this kind of reflection, it's a kind of review of what we came from and then what we are committing to, what we are going to put our passion and drive into. What are we allowing ourselves to play with? I talk about to my patrons a lot about this, the importance of curiosity in play right now, the importance of asking questions, of not being definitive, because the floor is gone, right? Every other day we wake up and we're having to figure out is one government structure closed or not, right? What new tariffs have been imposed? Who's tanking what now? It's chaos. That man is an agent of chaos and he is doing it well. Neptune and Aries, y'all, and he will not be the only one. So, right now, it's really, really important that we are in the body and allowing that body to come online. And in order for you to have your body come online, you got to be able to work with your emotions. And this is why I talk about embodied strategic dreaming so much as my work and through my embodied dreaming lab to help people really understand that your body is not the enemy. Your body is what makes you human. But because the systems that we are in need the body for its gain, it needs you to somehow see your body as the problem so that you're always trying to improve, always trying to be outside of it in order to give it up to something else. So again, Saturn says, baby, if you take that back, what could you actually do? And Mars says, well, shit, if I gave you all this time to kind of review about what it is you really do need, then if you believe that, what are you going to put into action? So this is Mars in Leo, action time. And we're going to be seeing this action playing out over the next few months, y'all, as we kind of get a preview again of Neptune and Aries and the kind of figures, the archetypes that are coming online. Now, the last thing I'm going to say is this. Just because somebody is showing you the kind of underbelly of something doesn't mean they don't have their own agenda as well. Let's go back to these kind of trade secrets that are being opened up online with various Chinese vendors. Something I want us all to keep in mind is this. A lot of things are true at the same time. So just as things are being revealed, we still have Piscean energy. New stories are being constructed. New origin stories are being laid down because in the present, where we locate our past will then shape how we see our future. We are now seeing a reshaping of the past through the quote unquote unveiling of these so called secrets. Yet, the unveiling is only doing so much. Because I'm going to say this right now, y'all. Do not get mistaken and think that somehow it is opening up for you to somehow take your authority back. This is just getting you to move your money from one location to another, right? This is still straight consumerism. This is still straight capitalistic engagement in one way or another, because those goods being manufactured in China still come from somewhere else. The supply chain is one that is nebulous in nature and it usually comes back down to coming right through Africa, right? The Congo and other locations in which the material goods are being sourced because the human labor is still seen as somehow not needing to be compensated. Okay? So as the origin stories reveal themselves, continue to be curious and ask more questions. Don't just be reactionary. Don't just go and give your authority up to the new, shiny kind of figurehead that is giving you a different narrative that is making you still comfortable or the appearance of comfortability, because to be truly in reality means that there's an uncomfortableness we all need to feel in our relationship to our material needs and the raw goods that are needed for those material needs to be met. Okay, so how comfortable are you in uncomfortableness? And can you allow yourself to sit in that uncomfortableness long enough to work through it so that you can figure out a new way to be? And again, this is this energy that is really starting up, but we're going to be going through it for the next few months. So start to examine your relationship to safety and security again, all right? And if you're on my Patreon, then I've talked a lot about this. I've got some rituals on there that I've given, along with various kind of head washes and foot washes you can do in order to, again, to ground in the body and be able to work with it. And this is, again, why I work with music so much with the Curiosity Playdates and stuff. So if you're interested, y'all, please go ahead and subscribe to my Patreon. Tiers start as low as $5 a month. And I got all kinds of exciting things there. Now, also, if you have always been interested in getting an astrology reading with me, then I will be doing in-person readings next week at Nobody's Darling up on the north side of Chicago. Nobody's Darling is a Black lesbian-owned bar, and it's been a great place for me since I've come back to the city just to kind of congregate and meet with other folks, and they're giving me the opportunity to do a pop-up. I don't usually do in-person readings. If you book a reading with me, we do a Zoom reading in which I go through your chart. I call it Journey to Self, and it's really an astrological assessment of your energies and how those energies collide with the structures of society, right? And we do strategizing and prescriptions. But for this pop-up, I'm just going to do either 30-minute readings for $50 or $25 readings for 15 minutes. And we can just kind of get some insights into your energies. Look at your big three, look at your North Node, look at your inner planets and how they interact with the outer planets, and just kind of get a brief kind of introduction to you through the cosmos. So you can find me at Nobody's Darling on the 26th of April, which is going to be that new moon, along with that Pluto-Mars opposition. So we can talk about that as well if you want to run a little bit of a transit chart for yourself, okay? But I think that is all. I'm looking at my notes here, y'all. I'm looking at my notes here. Also, let me just say here, my books are open for Journey to Self readings. So if you would like to do a one-on-one reading with me, all of my readings are on Zoom. They are live. I like talking with people who want a reading with me, and we go through your chart. Again, I look at your energies, the inner planets, the outer planets, and the prescriptions that the chart is signaling that can help activate or alleviate some of your aspects and or transits. So for more for that, please check out my website, drnicolerawls.com. And there you can also see my other services. I do a lot of work with clients and through my embodied dreaming lab. And so if you were interested in more for services there, you can check that out. All right. Now, next week, we have this new moon in Taurus alongside this direct opposition of Mars and Pluto. It's time to do new things in new ways, and it's not going to feel good. All right. So we're going to talk about that next week. And speaking of not feeling good, I myself are in the middle of all of this, y'all, because not only has this move been good for me, but it's also been unsettling in all kinds of ways. So I completely understand if you're feeling unmoored in this moment, if you're feeling uncomfortable in this moment, and you are just looking for some alleviation. And I say this with love. The alleviation comes when you allow yourself to sit and feel that fully and work through it. And we'll talk about that more next week on the show. But again, I also talk about that much more in depth on my Patreon. All right. Okay, y'all. Till next time, keep dreaming, keep exploring, because it is through your dreamscape so we can bring those futures we say we want into reality in the present day. All right, y'all. Till next time. I don't want to be right. I just want to be free. Like Michelle sang. The kindness, where we come from. The light that lit the way for our ancestors in the dark of night, when they had to leave the spaces that tried to steal their breath and life. Reworking, while also learning how to work with the land that was also being worked. A land and people under duress. The trees did not ask if they wanted to participate in such brutal practices. Yet here they were. Here we are. All beholden to a power structure that only knows how to take and never to give, while telling us this is the right way to live. So I don't want to be right. I just want to be free. As Michelle say, the cosmos. Learn, imagine that freedom lied in parable of the sower that sowed the seeds of earth's seed that wanted to bring humans back to the stars, to start again, to start anew. Remember where we come from and who we are. The stars that lit the way, that guide the light. The moon that holds the tides of the waters, our connection to earth and land. As above, so below, yet we don't know, because we have lost the above and the below. So I don't want to be right, I just want to be free, and journey to the cosmos.